Hello everyone, welcome to my video. My name is Kevin, on Twitch known as Dutchy. I wanted to make this video to hopefully inspire some of you to help return Gears of War to its former glory. After playing, streaming, and watching hundreds of community members say, do, and think things, I thought it was time to give my 2 cents and also help the newer players understand where the history of the gameplay behind Gears of War came from. So let's get into it. I am a longtime Gears player, but what does that truly mean? My understanding, or roots as we could call them, are based in 2008 with the release of Gears of War 2. Now I suggest you sit down because it's time to go back to the good old days of our beloved multiplayer. When Gears 1 was released, nobody really knew how far this game would evolve, or how far its players would take the skill gap or the ripple it would cause for the players' fantasies. Not until Gears 2 was released, where players were introduced to being able to truly engulf themselves in the art of movement. And yes, I did just call it an art, because these days, it kinda is. Gears of War 2's movement system introduced the ability to cancel your action, which gave us all an insane amount of choice when choosing what to do in each situation. Now that, combined with great map design, meant we always had a world of fun in front of us. But Gears 2's matchmaking and hosting problems were absolutely horrendous. Always having a horrible host in the game meant that the players needed to let off some steam somehow, and thus it had created a rough-edged, toxic environment with limitless trash talk and banter. But the ironic thing was, it was pretty fantastic for the dedicated fanbase. It was a place for anyone and everyone to be obnoxious to each other for a so-called reason. A game where body parts flew off left and right and characters cursed and games were won and lost over the smallest mistakes. Everyone understood that even playing the game in a semi-proper way meant you spent hundreds of hours failing at doing the right thing, which eventually made every player highly competitive to prove themselves. Rivalries existed every single game, every single ranked game, every game mode. You had hundreds of clans clashing every single day in these game modes, trying to outshout, outplay, and outman each other. It was a true manly man's place, filled with the testosterone you'd expect it to be, and sometimes some pretty crazy fucking people. It was a game that molded anyone into a actual gaming warrior if they played long and hard enough. It wasn't a game that held your hand when you jumped into a match. Instead, you were surrounded by vicious man-eating sharks, and the only way for you to keep playing was to become one or basically quit wasting your time. That's the time I was introduced into a no-holds-back mindset, one that was incredibly fun and rewarding to use while playing. I didn't pay attention to my KD, my win-loss, or points. All I cared about was destroying the other players. So, now that you know a little bit about my background with Gears, let's jump into the actual meat of the video. In time, I started meeting great people from all over the world, and as the years went on, all the players in the community got better at the game. This includes players that played Horde and Beast, Overrun, you name it. People got better at it. Now when YouTube started to become a lot more popular among gamers, people started to make montages of their kills in Gears. You know, something that's still done today. However, at this time, there weren't many players that were able to replicate the same results, and many wondered why. In games like Call of Duty and Halo, every player was able to replicate each other's kills, moves, etc., because they were placed at the hands of the player. But in Gears, this is not the case. Many montages or frag videos or competitive videos showed a lot of host moments, something that every non-host Gears player despised about the multiplayer. This is because they realized that a host was able to do many things better than the average connected player. Sure, it was introduced in Gears 1 as well, but in Gears 2, it truly set the standard. Now slowly but surely, you started seeing more players think more about their potential montage than actually playing the game for the sake of playing properly. And who can blame them? You know, many players got very YouTube famous because of their videos. And another reason why this was a very big thing in Gears, it's because of the player count you have. In every match, you only have 8 to 10 players. While in Call of Duty, you could have 16, and Battlefield, etc., you could have a lot more. So it's not as obvious all the time. Now, this wasn't a big issue until Gears 3 was released. And this is where the generation of players spawned that didn't care about the outcome of the match anymore, especially in areas like Europe. The moment Quick Match was introduced, which seemed like a great idea at the start, quickly changed the player base and the players' attitudes. Many players would simply leave every match because they could. While in Gears 2, if you left, you were heavily penalized and trash talked by either your friends or the players in your team. As time went on, the community learned of the connection's faults and the bugs / glitches in the game. And at the time, Savage Cantus was released with one of the DLCs, all fucking hell broke loose. Everyone and their fucking mothers played broken characters, used broken weapons, or would purposely lag / glitch the game just so they could win or no one could win. Many players stopped trying to learn how to wall bounce or strafe because it simply wasn't needed anymore. 9 out of 10 matches, there was no threat of being completely annihilated by the other team's overwhelming movement. Now, I've always believed that effort equates to skill. The more / less effort it costs you to do something, the more / worse you're at it, regardless of the outside results, like match score, etc. Because skill is a very individual thing. But this isn't the primary idea for many players, which I think it sometimes should be. Today's Gears of War is played in a very different way as several years ago. Players don't respect each other's effort enough to return the same amount of effort / intensity. They will simply resort to cheesy techniques or run away to waste their time and, in the end, everyone's time. The game isn't about winning anymore, fair and square. It's more about winning at any cost possible. Which again, if you're playing for an external reason, that's fine. But just in-game, in quick match or casual or ranked, I don't think that's the way it should be. Today we have thousands of players believing they are the best in the game, or they got the best montage lined up for someone to watch, but they don't realize that they're beating new players to a pulp just to get their own attention and making those new players quit the game. True competitiveness is when the playground is even, when everyone has the exact or close to exact benefits / burdens, and that's only happening on LAN. And even then, sometimes the game doesn't work. Maybe 1 out of 1,000 players isn't delusional about the state of the game and how poorly it rewards actual skill. Everyone who's played enough will know the pain of shooting someone point blank in the back, only to be greeted with a completely glitched out character turning 180 degrees and headshotting you in a quarter second. This caused the competitive side of people to take a turn for a slight insanity. Players are quick to dismiss that you, as a potential veteran, can be one of the few pioneers of the game who had to learn everything by trial and error to evolve the game. These days, if you're not finishing MVP every match, you'll be considered irrelevant or garbage or whatever by other players. Or even if you finish MVP, you just don't feel the same. It just doesn't matter as much as it used to. Now, to me, I've heard all of this stuff 1,000 times during Gears of War 2 and all the way up to today. Doesn't faze me as much anymore until I found an actual match of skill in the game. Now, this rarely happens because after playing for almost 10 years, you'll know by feel and fact when someone's legitimately beating you or not. Now, Gears of War, in my opinion, has devolved into a shadow of its former self. Epic Games or the Coalition can say whatever they want in terms of the numbers on paper, but the reality of the gameplay does not lie. Mechanics are broken, connections are broken, and above all, attitudes are broken. And how couldn't they be, after years of neglect or answers by the developers? So it's time to take matters into our own hands. I believe it's time to go back to how it was, but obviously improve on the bad things. So, if you're the kind of person who feels responsible for their actions or wants to be an influence, you might want to step up to the task of being one of those die-hard, no fucks given players that will not follow the river's flow but instead go upstream. So, start learning things you think you can't. Start adding values to your wins against proper opponents. Start teaming up with random new guys and offer advice. Start sending messages asking if they want to do a private game to practice things that you also want to learn. Start a clan to rival each other on the leaderboards or in game. Start a unwritten code of conduct, a way of playing that respects each other's gameplay. You know, in Gears 2 we used to air melee at the end of a round when there's only 2 players left, and if you both agreed, then you do a shotgun fight to decide whoever wins. You could also start being active on the forums, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch if you haven't already. Now I know some of you might think this is very far-fetched, but it's truly not. Many people these days do not want to take the effort to mean something for someone else or to be someone for something else. But I can assure you, if it wasn't for the people that did do all that stuff, this game would have been perished a long time ago. So, please spread the word and let's make Gears great again.
They are rage, brutal, without mercy. But you will be worse. Rip and tear.